Well, hey, good day, people. Pastor Jamal here, Rising Groundchurch. Let's jump right in. So, I want to talk about the script in your mind. The script in your mind. What version is your mind rehearsing? What version of that script in your mind are you rehearsing? So, I had we're just gonna have to see where this moment goes. I got a couple different examples I've been kind of playing with. I'm not exactly sure if they're as valid as I would like them to be as it relates to that title, the script in your mind, but let's just go ahead. So there's a person that I had gotten wind of years ago. Her name is Michelle Longo O'Donnell. She had wrote a series of books. They were called Of Monkeys and Dragons. And her story is she was not raised in church. She didn't know about Christian stuff or that kind of stuff. And somewhere along the line in her life, she picked up the Bible and she started to read the Bible, and she started to get this perspective that wasn't a perspective that came from something rehearsed or conditioned or religious. So nobody taught her what the Bible was saying. She just picked it up and read it as a book, and as a result of that, she got a connection that was authentically and uniquely hers with God. So she would say that reading the Bible, it was such a beautiful book, a beautiful poetic book. So she really, her perspective was, in my opinion, a really good neutral perspective to have as it relates to really knowing God and the mind of God. So that's so beautiful. So Michelle had two daughters. She had one daughter that was perfectly healthy, and the other daughter was born severely kind of retarded, as she would say in the book. She had severely crossed eyes. She had her tongue. The daughter's tongue was hanging out of her mouth. She really couldn't speak. She probably would make sounds, and it was just one of those really sympathetic situations, you know what I mean? But the unique thing about Michelle is she would not allow herself nor anybody else to label her daughter. She wouldn't, there was no special needs, there was no retardation, there was no thing like that that she would allow to come out of her mouth or her mind or someone else's as it relates to her daughter. As much as her daughter was in the hospital and the doctor's diagnosis, this lady would still never allow that kind of labeling to happen against her daughter. So as a result of that, I think the daughter was around, I'm going to say 5 to 7. So around 5 to 7, I can't remember if it was 5 or if it was 7, there was a shift. It was literally a snapping. She had another experience, that's why I say snapping, that happened with her own body that kind of reminded me of that. But nonetheless, the moment happened, and I mean a literal moment, where the daughter, the severely retarded daughter, her tongue just went back in her mouth, her face, her countenance changed, and she went on to become a lawyer and a wife and a mother. So imagine that. Imagine a young girl born this way. Normally those type of situations, they don't end like that whatsoever. The person could end up dying early, or she would kind of live out the rest of her days that way with her mom, or in a special needs facility. But that wasn't the case, because Michelle would not allow, let's say it this way, she took ownership of the script in her mind. She took the ownership of it, and she rewrote it. She rewrote the script in her mind, and as a result of rewriting that script, then she changed her daughter's life. So she literally, when we talk about what version is your mind rehearsing, she decides to make adjustments in the script in her mind and rehearse the new script. And as a result of that rehearsing, it changed what 99.99% of people never see change. And that's God. That's God. So I wanted to really kind of just come in here and just kind of remind us to kind of talk about what is the script that is playing in your mind? For me, I had a moment the other day where I realized that I was playing a particular script and I didn't know it. And before the Lord gave me that revelation, I was kind of like reacting in a way like I was kind of like, it's kind of like you play the victim. That's kind of hard because, we have moments where people really, they really hurt us. They really jab at us, whether they're deliberately doing it or they're not, or this is just something that just happens. It happens, and it literally happens to you. So it's not that I was creating this scenario that would make someone deliberately put me in this mindset or anger me or whatever. But what's going on as a result of the state of consciousness that I was in or that I am in, that consciousness brings with it experiences that are akin to that consciousness. So for me, I had to, the Lord took me back, a lot of years ago when I was a kid, and there was this common theme that I would kind of have playing in my heart. And I wouldn't know that at the time. I wouldn't even label it that, but I realized that that's what it was. And that was the foundation and the consciousness that brought these experiences of, of feeling like, feeling unworthy, unrespected, not valued, not thought about, which makes you kind of react in the world because of those feelings, those strong impressions. But I realized it, and I thank God, because now, as a result of kind of looking at my script and looking into my consciousness and seeing, now I can take the blame off of maybe a thing or a person that I would blame, and I can say, oh, this is happening because this state of consciousness is kind of rising. So now I can actively rewrite, or I can actively rehearse a new script. And the new script is, no, I'm not looked at that way. I'm not abused. I'm not abandoned. I'm not hurt. Those were just moments that happened that made me kind of participate in the consciousness now that I no longer have to, because I realized the truth. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Real talk, y'all. Real talk. And I was thinking about the story of Jacob, and I'm talking about Jacob, Laban, Rachel, and Leah. So Jacob wanted to marry Rachel. Laban was like, well, you can marry my daughter if you come work for me for 7 years. And I could be paraphrasing. So Jacob says, okay, I'll do it. So he works for him. He tends to his cattle, and he does an awesome job. He really makes Laban thrive, in that area. And as a result, when the 7 years was up, he's like, hey, it's up now. Let's get married. So instead of Laban giving Jacob Rachel, which that's who he wanted, he gave him Leah. And he didn't want Leah, but he was like, she's my oldest daughter, and as custom, the oldest daughter has to go first. So Jacob recognized that and was like, oh, okay, well, how can I get Rachel then? And he's like, well, Laban, you got to work another 7 years for me. So he was like, all right. So he did it. Again, he prospered the Laban and cattle, and 7 years was up. He got Rachel. So Jacob knew that he had to break free from here. He wanted to raise and take care of his own family. He wanted to prosper like he was prospering him. So he knew there were some decisions and some choices that he would have to make. So he makes Laban not a wager, but he makes him a deal. And he says, I'll do this for your cattle, blah, blah, blah. And as a result, you'll give me my freedom to take my wife and go. And I'll give you the best end of the stick. That's what Jacob was telling Laban. So Laban's like, okay, cool. So basically Jacob took a portion of the cattle, which I think would be considered a lesser version of the cattle, and he gave Laban, or he made Laban, he gave him the best of the cattle, and he grew both of their sides of cattle. But it made it look like Laban would come out with the best end of the stick. But this is what I'm trying to get at with the story. The story goes that Jacob devised a plan that he would bring certain not portions, but certain cattle. He would bring them to the watering hole where they would drink, and he placed before them at the watering hole this stick that he kind of shaved to make it white. It's almost like pruning, where you prune a bark and then now it's just bare white. So he put the bare white pruning stick in front of the cattle while they would drink, and they would look at the stick, the white stick, and then they would mate. And as a result of that, they would birth a specific kind of cattle. And so that, and it worked. So this was the interesting thing. So how does that happen? So the story is like, you guys hear me talk about allegory and a lot. We have to really start to pull out the symbolism in the allegory and a lot of things that God is trying to get us to see. So how can that be possible? How could that be possible? It's possible because Jacob, he set himself on a course of I won't say revising, but updating his script. He had a plan, he had an idea of what he wanted in his mind and in his imagination, and he went with it, and as a result, it happened. So this is what it's like symbolically for us to literally change the script in our mind. Michelle's a perfect example of something that you wouldn't even conceive of happening as truth as actually happened. You know what I mean? So you have the ability to shift your perspective, you have the ability to change the script in your mind, which changes the thoughts, it changes the thinking, it changes the attitudes, it changes the actions of your moment, of your play, of your movie. And we have to realize this truth, because here lies our freedom. Here lies your freedom. If you're tired of going through the same old regurgitating life and nothing changes, even your prayers seem not to work, God is pointing you to something. God is trying to get you to understand a formula, a system that changes the game. But the good news is, when you really are intentional with your prayer and your words and your thoughts and your imagination, then that's why people say prayer works, because they finally found the sweet spot of prayer. Even if they don't even necessarily know exactly what's happening, they've tapped into a real strong place within themselves, praying, that produces the result eventually. So I'm saying the script in your mind is your consciousness, the conscious place where you dwell. Whatever you're experiencing in this place where you dwell now is the direct result of what script this consciousness is rehearsing and giving you back. And I really wanted to make this as unreligious as I can, because there is a nugget of power that we can access when we stop boxing in God. Sometimes you have to hear something in a way to make it click, to make the revelation available to you that God is trying to get you to understand. So I hope this made sense. I hope it's making sense. And I pray that you guys start to revise the script in your mind, and you start to rehearse new versions of what it is you want to see in your life. So when we say rehearse, that means you think about what you want, you picture it, and then you walk towards the actions when the actions show themselves. So the action for Jacob was creating or making that white stick, or that stick, and putting it where he put it, and creating this whole atmosphere of supernatural transformation from it. So you do that. That's how you rehearse your movie or your play or the thing that you and God desire for you. And when you continue in it, and when you rehearse it until it's really clear for you, just again, like an actor rehearses until it's time to make the scene. So they've rehearsed to the point where it's second nature to them. So when they look in the camera, it's not them anymore. It's the new thing. That's all I got, y'all. Pastor Jamal, Rising Ground Church. Love y'all, man. Peace.